And this is an interesting twist on the Capello saga. News of the World, they're saying that if Mancini struggling by the autumn at Eastlands, then they will go for Fabio Capello. Why? I have no idea, but we'll look at that a little bit later on. But first, City. We were all at Spurs yesterday. Yep. If you look down the team sheet, you could pick, what, two teams? You could
beat three teams, probably.
Three teams, OK. But how does he keep them all happy?
Got to win things, I think, simple as that. Obviously, they're comforted by the huge wages. That makes a difference, but it's about winning trophies. You know, everybody says, how can Alex Ferguson keep all his players happy? Well, they keep winning things. And that's what City got to do. But Mancini's got a hell of a job on his hands. It's like a great big melting pot in there, isn't it? You know, you pour the ingredients in, and they're expensive ingredients, and you hope something comes which is good and wins trophies, basically. But no, it's going to be a hell of a job. I mean, I like playing with fire. I've actually tipped City to win the league this season, so it's going to be. But it's going to be a roller coaster.
Does Fergie know that?
Might be banned now. But having said that, City could finish anything from 1st to 8th or 9th. It could implode, but it's going to be fascinating. You know, City are going to be the headlines nearly every week, and that's great for people like ourselves, and it's great for the City fans. You know, they've seen Dross for a long time. I think the last trophy was 1976. Feel a little bit sorry for some of the City fans, because, you know, people are sort of turning on them, you know, the nouveau rich club. You know, they used to be everybody's second favourite club, didn't they? But now everybody's envious of them. But now Mancini's got a job on his hands, and the next few months will tell how he does. But he will be, as that paper says there, he'll be under pressure straight away. He's got to win virtually every week. I think people forget that Mark Hughes won 5 of his first 6 games last season. You know, and Sparky went, didn't he? Just before
December,
Christmas.
yeah.
Has he got too many players? Too many outstanding players, as far as, you know, on paper?
Yeah, I must admit, I worry about it, because I think it's going to take him so long to work out what his best team is, and indeed what the best shape of the team is, how to play it. It could be, you know, it could be October before he realise, you know, he knows those answers. I mean, yesterday, for example, he played 3 defensive midfield players, which you wouldn't expect you'd do if you'd spend £100 million on new players, and he played 3 tiny forwards, Silva, Wright, Phillips and Tevez. The team looked unbalanced. They looked too defensive, really. Now, he's got Boateng to come in at the back. I think he's going to be one of the players of the season, certainly the buy of the season, possibly, along with Hernandez at Manchester United. He's got Balotelli to come in as a striker, but even then, Balotelli, Tevez, Adebayor, how do you balance that out? Milner's coming in. How do you make a midfield out of those players? It's a dream scenario for a manager, but it's also a bit of a nightmare, because you think, well, how am I going to sort this out quickly enough to make us Premier League contenders from the beginning?
I mean, the press box of White Hart Lane is just in front of the dugout, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the City subs came. Vieira sat down, Adebayor sat down.
It was like a who's
you know,
who.
Givens sat down.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, all those players. I mean, okay, Vieira is probably the exception to that, but Adebayor and Given are not going to want to just be.
No, you're right, and you know, you didn't even see Balotelli, Milner, and Boateng on that bench.
No, well, Lescott was another one yesterday.
Lescott was another one there, and so and there were rumblings about Mancini's training methods and all the rest of it last year. Does he have the authority? Does he have the name to keep seriously top class players happy if they're not playing? I mean, that's going to be a real problem for him, I think.
Well, I mean, they missed. The player they missed yesterday was Craig Bellamy, I think, and he hasn't been able to keep him happy.
He's out.
I know Bellamy has a difficult reputation, but I think that I think Bellamy's quite an exacting guy. He likes good training methods, and you know, I think it's a failure of man management by Roberto Mancini. They missed somebody like Bellamy yesterday as one of their best players last season. So City, I think, you know, the thing that worried me about City yesterday was their. You know, okay, they got a point. They were totally outplayed by Spurs, and you just wonder about their, you know, that if they're going to be set up like that for the rest of the season.
I think he's quite a cautious coach, isn't he?
Kind of defensive fashion.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a lot of laughs watching them play. They're not going to win the title or get into the top 4 playing beautiful football.
I think they'll be all right at home. I think away from home he's too negative. In fact, that negativity probably cost him a Champions League place last season. You know. Even at home against Spurs in that, you know, the decisive game, they were very cautious.
Yeah, they've got a.
But he's an Italian.
He's an Italian coach. Yeah. He's spent his life in Serie A, and Italian teams don't go, you know, hell for leather.
But what do you do, Paul, if you're Manchester City and you've got players like Bellamy, Given, Lescott and others, and you can't sell them. Do you loan them to rivals for a fourth spot, or do you tell them, no, you're not, you can't go anywhere? I mean, Shay Given, for instance, he doesn't want to be on the bench.
No. Well, I'm surprised that Shay Given saying that he might, threatening to leave before the season had even started, and presumably he now has to follow through on that threat, because he's clearly not going to be number one. And we'll talk about Capello later, but watching Joe Hart yesterday, it seemed so obvious that he's the best English goalkeeper in the country, and why he didn't play at the World Cup from the beginning is anyone's guess. But that's another issue. I think, you know, those players, he can't loan them out. Clearly, he has to have them. He has to have this 25-man squad of world-class players if he's going to, or international class players if he's going to win the Premier League. So they've got a long way to go from 6th to 1st. You know, they've got a lot of work to do, and I just. It comes back to this problem of buying players seemingly randomly. I like him, I'll have him. I like him, I'll have him. I like him, I'll have him. I don't see yet there's a clear pattern. There may be one in Mancini's head, but if there isn't, he's got all this integrating to do.
I mean, I'm delighted for City's fans, like John, that they've got some real investment in the club. As John said, they've watched Dross for too long. They're brilliant fans, City fans. I think they're the best. They're the best fans in the country, City fans. I think they're brilliant. But I worry about the methods that the club is adopting. I'm not talking about splashing money around. They've got money, good for them. Splashing. I'm with Paul. I don't see any method in their buying. It seems to be a scattergun approach. If somebody's available, you know, a guy who's going to cost them over 25 million quid, buy him. And there doesn't seem to be any method in what there doesn't seem to be really any building going on.
So do you discard, before this transfer window, do you discard Given, Bellamy, Lescott and others?
Well, I mean, my own personal thing, I wouldn't discard Bellamy because I think he's one of the best players they've got. I mean, I'd get rid of Sean Wright-Phillips before I got rid of Craig Bellamy. I'd get rid of, you know, most of the attackers before I got rid of Bellamy. I think last season the evidence was there that he was one of their best players, but he's had a breakdown with Mancini.
Okay, but so turn that on its head.
Yeah.
It looks as though he is going to go, to get to play first team football. If you're City and you look at your squad and you think, well, I can't keep all these players happy. Surely 5 of them have got to go before the end of August.
Yeah.
Just to balance it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the problems he's got, though, and you alluded to that before, is that a lot of these players that he is buying, he's not doing the Sir Alex Ferguson thing. He's not heeded that mantra that Fergie has of buying a character, a player with character as well as talent. So he's buying people like Balotelli, Adebayor, who are they're problems, and I think that those players, they're incendiary characters, and they're going to be a problem. I can see it blowing up at City in a big way. Whoever he keeps or doesn't keep in his 25, I think he's got a hell of a job on there, Mancini.
But at the same time, they're all good players. I think we all admit that. The good players can win matches.
Do you think that if in the autumn, and I saw a date of November the 20th around for some reason, that he's not top 4 or not top 3, they'll go, okay, thanks very much, we'll get somebody else in?
Yeah, well, that standard's been set with Mark Hughes last December. I mean,
so then the new manager in the January transfer window will go, okay, I'll bring all these in then.
Yeah, and then it's a mess, isn't it? You've got to stick with managers. We've always thought that, you know, and City are no different. But they've shown their cards now, shown their hand, and this is what's going to happen. And that's negative for the club, because if that surrounds the club all the time, you're not going to make progress. Like him or, you know, dislike him, you've got to stick with Mancini now.